fishyourassoff.com. It's my website, or fishyourassoff.com is my YouTube channel. I'm a fishing guide, you know, U.S. Coast Guard licensed fishing guide. Born and raised in Florida, grew up in Jupiter. Huh?
A little bit.
Ah, you're probably right. God, you're better at this than me.
A little bit.
All right, I'll do it that way. And yeah, I live in Port St. Lucie now, so I've been inshore fishing about 40 years. We're going to cover snook, tarpon, redfish, and trout. With lures mainly, but I'm also going to talk about some dead baiting and some live bait too. So I made a little tray. We're going to start with snook. And really what the point of this exercise is to show you just don't need a lot of baits to catch these fish. You can have literally a big Ziploc bag, could be your entire tackle box as far as catching snook, redfish, tarpon, trout. You need something dark. I don't care what it is. It could be purple, it could be black. These are root beer. I get these in Stewart from, just because they're from Stewart. It's DOA. They're a lure brand. But they're local, that's why I like to use them.
Sorry, I just can't catch you.
This is going to be for dirty water. So anytime we get a lot of rain and runoff or whatever, this just has a better silhouette, more contrast than something lighter. So that's as simple as that. Or at night. If you want to fish these at night, it's another time. Probably 80% of the time, I use something that's like this. This is pearl, but anything light. This could be a glow, could be a pearly color, might have a funky tail or anything, but just make sure it's light. That's for slightly stained water and clear water, and that's going to be your best bet. You have to master this top water plug. Any walk the dog type of saltwater plug, which is this motion is how you do it. And we're going to talk about these in a minute. These are nighttime snook, deeper water, but let's pass these around a little bit. That's all you need. You're going to need different sizes. You got to match the hatch. I mean, everyone, you know, Bass Pro Shop and all these places make their money on catching fishermen, not fish. You know, it's purple demon, electric chicken, you know, all these colors they come up with. It's like you just don't need them. I'm telling you right now. You just don't need them to catch all these fish that I'm going to be talking about today. You just need different sizes of them. You want to catch a lot of fish? Where did I put that? There it is. You want to catch a lot of fish? Use about a 3-inch paddle tail. So you're fishing with your kids, or you just need something to tug on your line. You know, the smaller paddle tails are going to catch everything in there, but most of them are going to be junky fish, smaller fish, you know, things like that. You guys, everyone get it?
No.
Oh, no, it's back.
They go to spike. We knew you didn't get it, so we were.
There you go. Sorry about that. That's the way to do it. You're going to catch just about everything with a smaller type of paddle tail like that. So that's a fun day fishing when you're bringing your kids and stuff. Once you want to really start targeting good fish, like a slot snook or a bigger redfish or bigger trout or whatever it is, you're going to have to go up to the 4 inches to consistently catch them. You're going to catch a lot less fish, but you're going to catch better fish. And when you really start hunting those pigs, a big monster, you know, got to be 5 inches plus to really consistently catch those. Because we were talking about earlier, the big fish are like me. They're just lazy. They don't want to spend a lot of calories chasing down a bunch of fish, so they'd rather eat one thing like this than 10 things like this. And it's just as simple as that when you get to these older, smarter fish. That's why dead bait works so well when you're fishing for those bigger fish and snook. So all you need, light and dark, you've got to master this lure. A walk the dog type of lure. This is Rapala Skitter Walk, Zara Spooks, Mirror Lure, Top Dogs. Every brand has this because they're so effective. And it's really, I mean, I got these out of a tree, that's why I'm using this, but I use white almost constantly, unless I'm fishing at night, and then I use purple or black. So you don't need anything more than that. Let's cover these guys. So we're still talking about snook here. This is the undisputed champion of snook fishing. This lure has caught more snook than all these other lures combined, period. I don't know why they work, but they just do. Especially for big snook at night, or inlet snook, or bridge snook, or anything around structure with a lot of flow, tidal flow, down deep. So you got a lot of current and all that. And it's probably the simplest lure in the world to use. You go just like this. This is my heavier lure, rod and reel. This is a, what is this? This is a heavy, no, this is medium heavy. Is the action on it? I think it's 7 feet. I thought 7.5 feet, whatever that is. A 4000 series reel. I think I put 20 on this. Braided line 20. And for snook, you always need a minimum of 30 for the better snook, or you're probably going to lose a lot of them. Your teeth are going to wear through it. Up to 50 or 60. You know, depending on what you're doing. But if you're fishing these flare hawks, current's going this way, you're always casting up current, and you're basically reeling this fast enough to keep it off the dirt. That's what you're doing. You probably have an 18-inch strike zone, effective strike zone. Sometimes you'll get it better. But when they're in the inlets and in those places, they're on the bottom, they're stacked on the bottom, and that's how you're gonna catch them, just doing like that. And like I said, that is your retrieve. I know some guys that want to give a little hippity-dippity or whatever. I've never found that much difference, and I just get tired. Again, I'm old and lazy. So, yeah, if you can fish like this and catch them, why not do that? But be ready, hold on. A lot of people lose a lot of their gear because you get a 40-inch snook on, and you're going like this, and it's going to come right out of your hand. So they're definitely going to take something like this right out of here. Same with the paddle tail. So paddle tail, when I have a brand new person on my boat, you know, that say they haven't fished much, I hook them up with a paddle tail, cast it out. This is a medium action rod. What is this? 2500 series reel. And that's 10-pound braid, and I either have a 15 or 20-pound leader on there. And this is what I use to fish 90% of the time, because most of the time I'm out in the open on a flat or just pitching up to not much structure like a spoil island or something like that. I don't have to dig any big fish out of a dock or something. So this will work just fine for most of your fishing that you're gonna do. Cast your paddle tail, and just reel it. Every now and then go like this. It's really all you gotta do. Sometimes you really gotta get a reaction bite, and you might have to work hard and give it a few more jigs or whatever you wanna do. Down, if you're up on a up, twitch it down to give it a little more action. But that's it. Now bass fishermen call things different things than saltwater fishermen call this. So bass fishermen would call this a fluke. We call it a jerkbait in saltwater, but you fish them the same way. So you fish it out. This is what you're gonna hook up. It's gonna be weedless. This is gonna be for, say, mangroves or a dock or something like that. We got a good chance of getting hung up and just use a regular jig head. It's gonna be something like this. And the way you fish with that, oh, they skip. That's why you use these instead of a paddle tail. Because if you're not fishing something like that, you probably don't need these. But these skip, whereas a paddle tail, if you skip it, it might go there. Whereas this thing, you can skip it all the way to the back. It goes tip, 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 all the way up underneath the mangrove or anything. It's just better skipper. And the way you fish this is simple too. You kick it out, clack, clack, real hard, let it die. Clack, clack. So what it is that fish is like, yeah, you've seen them, an injured fish, the way it just kind of, and then kind of falls back in the water. They almost always hit it on the fall, so make sure you're pausing when you're fishing with those jerkbaits like that. All right, what else do we want to talk about? Okay, dead bait. Dead bait. All of my biggest fish have been on dead bait. Biggest tarpon, biggest redfish, biggest trout, biggest snook. Dead bait fishing. When those snook will not hit anything else. You pitched everything in your tackle box. You got the beautiful live pinfish, perfect, and they won't eat it. Kill your pinfish or whatever you have and put it there, because there are just times when they just flat out won't chase anything. But they'll walk over, walk their fish, swim over, and oh, that smells nice. It's fresh. Boom. They didn't use any calories eating that thing. So, as your last resort with those, use a dead bait. Make sure you use the head. I don't know what it is, but snook in the head of a mullet, leave the head on. You know, a lot of people make the mistake of using the back half and tossing the head. Don't do that. The head is what catches these fish. The snook especially. But redfish like the head too, and tarpon, yeah, just like everything. But that's what you use with those. What you got?
How about lady fish head?
Sure, why not? I mean, when I'm fishing with them, oh, I forgot to tell you about this. Dead bait. It has to be big enough so a sail cat can't eat it. Those big catfish, they always get there first. I don't know what it is about them, but they'll find it first. So when I'm fishing dead bait, it's like this is about your minimum. You know what I mean? Because I've had some catfish that can eat them like this big, so it's about right here. And you'd be surprised. Last weekend, we caught a 27-inch trout off a bait this big. So now do your math. How big is that? And how big is a 27-inch trout? They can eat a big thing. This thing was like this big around. It had to be 9 pounds. It was huge.
How do you hook the dead bait?
Oh, good question. So there's a lot of different people debate this. You know, when it's a mullet head, a lot of times they want to go like this. I don't ever do that. I like leaving a piece of the back, and they have a spine and kind of hook underneath the spine, so you have some structure underneath it, so you don't cast them off as well. Because if you just hook the meat, a lot of times the skin won't hold it. So I go underneath the spine. It just has more of a. It doesn't fly off as much, I guess is what my point is when you're dead bait. But it's a patient man's game, you know. You're picking a spot. You're like, okay, I got a deep channel here. I got a little flat. Could be a sandbar. Could be whatever it is. And let's say I got mangroves or docks or whatever that is. But it's a great place if you just want to post up, have a couple cold drinks, fish some dead bait. Because you know that they're going to be working with the tide back and forth. I like the higher parts of the tide, but it doesn't matter. If they swim by and you have a fresh, good bait, they'll probably eat it for dead bait. Okay? How about live bait? You want to talk about that? Because this is what a lot of people get wrong, is how to hook a bait. Okay. Now, I'm not the best artist in the world, but that's a fish, and that's his tail, and you hook him in the back. What's going to happen is the fish is going to fight you, especially if it's a mullet or a fish that's going to stay on top. So say you had a mullet, because that's the best example. Certain fish like pinfish and croakers are going to go straight down, but anything that's going to swim on top like a mullet, you hook it like this, or a nice big white bait, same way. So what's going to happen is that fish is going to fight you and stay on top. So when you say you have 2 or 3 feet of water and you know those snook are going by the dock, by the mangrove, by the fill in the blank, great way to hook them because you can control them perfectly. So say it's that wall there. You have this much line out, this much line, because it's going to be at the very end of the line, on top. It's just going to stay there and fight you the whole time, which is great. You're totally in control of that fish. Whereas if you hook a mullet in the nose like this, they're going to swim all over, they're going to come back to the boat, they're going to do all kinds of different things. So just the way you actually hook your live bait means a lot on how you're fishing. If you're drifting, or say you live on a water, you got a great seawall, and let's say that the current's going this way. Well, if you nose hook it, you pitch it up the current, that's the best way to do it. Just reel in your slack as he comes back to you, just by the nose. Because remember, when you hook them in the tail, they fight you, they're at the end of the line, always on top. Got it? Any questions on that? No? All right. And what I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove some things to you. So now we're gonna switch over to trout, and you're gonna find that I don't really change any of the lures. Because the whole point of this exercise, you don't need a lot of lures to catch tarpon, trout, redfish, snook. So I'm gonna add this lure, well, this combo. And I remember the first time I saw someone fishing with this, I was up in the Panhandle of Florida, and I was like, I can't believe those idiots. That is the dumbest thing I have ever seen in my life. And they'd rather go cast and caca. Until they caught about 5 trout to every one I caught with my paddle tails. So I switched over to one of these. It's something about this sound and something right underneath it. It could be a shrimp, it can be a paddle tail. The best thing by far is a gulp. Does everyone know what Berkeley gulp is? The stinkiest stuff on the planet. Yeah, that's the one. And I like to use either a shrimp or a swimming mullet. And guess which colors? White, light or dark? Yeah, that's it. Doesn't matter.
Those really work.
No, oh, these are.
I've seen it and I thought the same thing you were thinking.
These are legit. This is how you do it. This is for shallow water. You can't really use this in water deeper than say 4 feet effectively, because most of the time the trout are in the grass if you have grass, and they're not going to go too far above it. Yeah, we're for snook, but there's a lot of other things that you can use instead of that. So I'm going to pass them around again, even though there's only one more bait added, and it's that one. Yeah, it's dumb. Okay, yeah, great question. So you pitch it, and it's more of a pop pop, and what happens is the bait underneath it goes just like this. Pump pump, falls. And trout almost always hit it on the fall. Almost always. So you don't know that a trout just bit your lure until you pop it again. So that's why you don't want to wait too long. You pitch it out, pop, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, pop, and you reel it in the whole time. And so when I go fishing, I see this place. Let's say this was my area to fish today, this building. I look at it like a grid. Like a 5 foot by 5 foot grid. I want to make sure that I plop my lure in every piece of that grid until I figure out where the fish are. Because what you're going to find is roughly 80% of the fish are going to be in about 20% of the area. And I don't know what that area is. It might have the right tide, right amount of current, no predators, plenty of bait, the right water temperature. You really don't know. I fish almost every day, and I really don't know. Because one day they're there, and the next day they're not. So you just don't know. It doesn't even have to be. Try to get it. Yeah. So you find the fish, and that's why I'm teaching the lures, because it's the most effective way to cover a body of water, especially paddle tails. I mean, there's nothing to it. Okay, you pitched over there, no hits. Pitched over there, no hits. Boom, boom. You move. Boom, 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 move, boom, boom, boom. You cover a whole area. As soon as you start getting bites, well, now you know that there's those criteria I was just telling you about. There's probably not a lot of predators. There's a decent amount of current. There's probably other fish there that you want to catch. So a lot of people start catching jacks and they'll leave. And that doesn't make sense to me because, yeah, jacks are more aggressive a lot of times, but a lot of times there's a big monster snook underneath them on the bottom. You just got to get it past the jacks. You never know. But that's where the fish are. So there's no dolphin there, there's no sharks, there's whatever wherever they're there. You don't leave fish to catch fish. That's what I always. So don't try to leave fish to find more fish. You probably found a good spot. You just got to start switching things up. And so if you're catching a bunch of little fish, throw a bigger bait. The little fish won't hit it anymore. So that's how to do it with that. Does anyone have any more questions on snook?
This popper, you said you use it for trout. You use it for snook?
Oh, I said I'm on trout, aren't I?
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I'll help.
Hey, thank you.
Can you use this for
I've caught.
also redfish or?
I've caught tarpon on that. I've caught redfish on that, trout on that, flounder on that, and snook on that.
This is your go-to multi-purpose.
No, it's just for trout. What my go-to is always a paddle tail because I got to cover as much water as possible. So I pitch a paddle tail 80% of the time.
Okay.
Just different sizes. Just different sizes. Redfish. You guys want to learn about redfish?
Yeah.
Yes? Yes?
Yeah.
All you gotta do to switch up and start catching redfish. I'm gonna get my tray back right here. Yeah. Can you believe these work?
Yeah.
Blows me away. They work. All right.
Is there a pedal tail on here?
Yeah, these are all paddle tails.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all those.
Got it.
So all you gotta switch out with your tackle box that you have, that you could have in a Ziploc bag, right? Remember? You add this to it. The old bucktail jig. So, these things right here, bucktail jig. This is probably about a 1/4 ounce. You can tip this with a piece of shrimp because the difference between drum and other fish is they have 4 nostril holes. So the olfactory system is very important to them. So that's why stinky stuff works best when you're talking about black drum and redfish especially. So you just add a little piece of shrimp to this. You can add one of those gulp tails to this, anything stinky, and pitch this just like this. Within 18 inches of the bottom, we'll catch just about everything. So the current's going this way, you're casting up current. You're just kind of working this thing on the bottom or close to the bottom. Your strike zone is 18 inches tops for these redfish. Because think about what a redfish does. Looks down, rooting around, looking for crabs and stuff in the mud, shrimp, all these things are down there. It's not a fish that's used to looking for food by looking up. It's a fish that looks down. Whereas the snook's always looking up. That's why they have this big underbite. They're used to, they want to attack up, not down. So, it's hard to get their attention, in other words. So a lot of times I've been in places you'll have tailing reds, and you can't even get them to look up. You'll run your jig right past them and they won't even see it. You cast something stinky and sit it right next to them, they'll find it and they'll pick it up. It's all about stink.
What's your feelings about fish bites and big gum?
You know, I just started using those, so I don't have a lot of feeling for them because I just haven't used them. I've used them with Pompano, and I love them. It says the stinky stuff that looks like tape. You know, it's the fish bites and the fish gum and all that kind of stuff. I haven't tried it with that yet. I still just use a piece of frozen shrimp on a bucktail jig or the gulp, and it works just great. So you really don't need to do much else with that. When you're looking for these redfish, you can deadbait them very effectively too. But pinfish is the way to go if you can find pinfish. They love pinfish. You just cut the tail off. Yeah, just cut the tail off and you're good to go. Just sit it up there if you're around the mangroves. Get it up in the mangroves, the higher part of the tide. I like the last 2 of the incoming and the first 2 of the outgoing because they're way up in there. I don't know if any of you guys ever put on a snorkel. You're local. Have you ever snorkel up in there? And they go so far back. I mean, you see a mangrove that ends here. They go all the way back. I mean, it might be 10, 15 feet back. And there's fish back in there. So you can't get too close to the mangroves. In other words, you know, get them up in there and get those baits. It's hard to get them out, you know, when they hit you up underneath there because you really got to have something with a backbone to get them out. But they're up in there. They're way up in there. So if you're fishing mangroves, dead bait, high tide. If you're fishing for snook, dead bait, high tide by the mangroves again. The trout and the tarpon are typically going to be a scenario like this. You got some sort of flat, and then there's a channel that goes out. Thank you. And all you do is you put it on the edge of that drop off right there when you're dead baiting for the larger trout and the larger snook and the larger redfish and the larger tarpon. All are going to be like that unless you want to pitch it up to the mangroves. So if I find that place, I'll have one deep and I'll have one up in the mangroves. And that's how you fish with the dead baits for that. And let's talk a little bit more about that for say tarpon. Now everyone thinks of tarpon and they think of these fish that, you know, they're enigmatic, they're hard to catch, and they are all those things. Those bigger ones, once they get about this, it is so much easier to catch them on dead bait than anything else. It just is. So you find where they're gulping, pitch it out there, too big for a catfish, and you'll probably catch those tarpon. And there's time when you can have like the perfect little white bait that there is, and they just won't even look at it. And there's other days you could probably pitch a piece of broccoli at them, and they would eat it. You know, so they're one of those fish. They're my favorite. That's why I always fish for them, because I think it's because they piss me off so much. You know, they just, yeah. I don't know why. I'm a glutton for that. But a dead bait is going to catch that tarpon when nothing else will, and with snook and everything else too. But once you're fishing with for tarpon, you're going to notice a lot of these trends with me is how easy it is to catch fish once you know that you don't need a ton of different lures and how to retrieve it. I usually use a bigger paddle tail like this for this fun size tarpon, and you reel it about as fast as the current's moving is what I found works best. I don't know why that is, but so the current's moving this way, you pitch it up that way, and you just reel it back. And you want to do it at a 45. Is that 45? Yeah. So the tarpon gulps, you see its bubbles, you want to intersect it. So you want to run it about 3 or 4 feet ahead of where you think it's going to be. That's how you catch these tarpon with these paddle tails, if you want to fish with lures. And purple, for some reason, works better than that root beer that's in the box for some reason. I don't know why when it comes to tarpon. But the purple color typically is going to work the best for you. Night fishing. Now this is something that I see a lot of people get wrong. So we look at a light and we see where it shines on top of the water. And we know that the predators are in the dark waiting to hit something that's dumb enough to come into the light, right? And that's what we just instinctively know. But what we always forget is their dark is different from our dark. So that light's continuing to shine at that angle down in the water. So their dark is way out here. So their dark might be 20 feet past what your dark that you perceive is, and you want to be in the dark and make whatever you have swim to the light, or vice versa, but it has to cross that line, wherever that line is. So a lot of people undercast, and that's why they miss so many fish around dock lights. So say that's 10 feet deep, you think you're casting here, but you actually had to cast 15 feet farther to get into the shadow. And a lot of people do that wrong. They're like, man, everyone says you fish the lights at night, you're gonna kill it. You don't catch anything, because they're literally casting right here in the light. That's just not, it's not gonna catch anything. I covered those. Oh, flare hawk sizes. All right. I think you only need a 1.5 ounce flare hawk. I make my own. These are mine. But a 1.5 ounce flare hawk is going to work in inlets. It's going to work by bridges. It's going to work anywhere where the water is over, let's say 8 feet deep is your thing, with a decent amount of tide. So over 8 feet deep with a decent amount of tide, these are going to work just fine. And the way you fish them is exactly the way you fish all of these different types of jigs or paddle tails or anything like that. You cast up current, and you bounce it back to where the fish are, and you got an 18-inch strike zone. That's generous. 12 is better. Because if you've ever seen these fish, they're on the bottom stacked biggest to smallest most of the time, especially snook and redfish like that, because I don't know why it works like that, but that's how it works. So 1.5 ounces is going to work just about all the time. If you have a new moon or a full moon, you might need to step up to a 2 ounce. And like I said, if you're fishing shallow water, you can get away with those. You don't need a lot of colors, just like everything else. Say you were going to be a night snook fisherman. That was going to be your game. These 3 colors will work just fine. White is for clear water again, or slightly stained. And you're just going to have to interchange these to see which ones, the pinks or the chartreuse, work better on any given night. But it's better for stained water. But this one's best for clear water when you're doing that. I want to show you one more thing. This is the circle hook. There's a guy outside that I get all my circle hooks from. He's right in the middle lane. That's a 5/0 circle hook. I'll pass it. That's a 5/0 circle hook. And what I've found is that catches everything I want to catch, because I don't really want to catch a 100-pound tarpon and fight it for an hour. I want to catch a 50-pound tarpon and fight it for 15 minutes. And that 5/0 right there will catch a 40-inch snook, it'll catch the biggest trout, the biggest redfish you can catch, and it'll straighten once you get above like 80 pounds for a tarpon. So catches everything underneath there, and that's my whole world. So I don't care about anything bigger than that. That's the one. That is the best. It's an inline 5/0 circle hook.
You're fishing inland, as you say. What's your biggest leader material?
Okay, yeah. So say I'm fishing trout and redfish. I'll never have more than 20 pounds on there. I just never need to for things like that. Trout, you don't need anything really for the most part. Snook, you start at 30 and work your way up. So say you're fishing deep water for big snook down in an inlet, you're gonna have current to deal with and all these things. That's a lot of strain. So you're probably gonna be 50 or even 60 pound. It's gonna be your leader size with your deep, big snook. But I don't have anything higher than that either, because you know, the biggest fish I catch are always tarpon, and I actually want them to get off over 80 pounds because I don't want to deal with them. So I have 60 is the max I use for anything like that when you go down there.
What's the disadvantage of J hooks?
I didn't cover that. Circle hooks for dead. Use circle hooks is the answer to that question. But and the reason is, unless your game is just on, you're gonna foul hook so many fish with those J hooks. It's better for snook especially. Snook miss circle hooks a lot, but the J hook gets them. But it's just amazing how many times it's all the way down before you do it. And if you're not gonna keep these fish, you know, it's out of season or whatever, you're just killing fish. So J hooks definitely work better for snook, but nothing else, especially dead bait. Never use a J hook for dead bait. This works every time. And the best way is a rod holder. That rod holder will catch more fish than you will when you're fishing dead bait. Every time without exception. I've tested it, but I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get this one perfect. It just doesn't work. Rod holder, you're talking, you'll catch them. Whereas you'll feel it and you'll
You gotta wait a dead bait to get him down?
Well, it just depends, you know, that's another thing. So if there's a lot of tidal current or something like that, you might. It's better if you don't. But if you are gonna do it, I'm gonna show you my setup. This is the biggest rod and reel setup I got. This is a heavy action rod. What is it, 7 feet? Probably. This is a 5,000 series reel, and this thing is full of, what did I put on? It's either 40 or, I think it's 40-pound test. And the reason you want to have a lot on there when you're doing tarpon, because the tarpon can run from here out that front door in a second, it's just gone. So it's not really the pound, it's the line so you don't get spooled. You need something thin enough to fill up a spool for your tarpon. But that's the setup. That's an ounce right here. I got it way far away because tarpon have very good eyesight. Tarpon can see very well. So, and here's my 5/0 circle hook. And this right here would get a piece of dead bait about this big, and I'd cast it out there and sit and wait. This is exactly what caught that 27-inch trout, that 9-pound. This right here with a freaking piece of. It was amazing. So it catches everything. Dead bait is the way to go if you're having trouble catching these things. So I'm pitching lures first because it's fun. And you find the fish, live bait, great. Everything eats a live bait. When they won't eat either one of those, use a dead bait and you can catch all these different kind of fish that you're talking about.
What size is your hook?
This is a 5/0 inline circle hook. And the guy is literally in the middle aisle where I buy all mine. I wait for this thing every year to get all my hooks from that one guy. This is the one. Right there. Do you have any questions on any of these fish or tackle or techniques or what you got?
I don't know anything about fishing,
Okay.
but I'm intrigued. So
All right.
a lot of what you said has gone right over my head.
Okay.
Where's a good place for me to start?
Fishyourassoff.com.
Of course. I do like the name. I mean, I gotta give you props for that.
Yeah, I mean, I
sense of humor.
I got 400 and something videos on my YouTube channel talking about everything from tying this hook to getting this hook to what leader to what sinker to what everything. And the website is actually more of the written word, so it's more articles if you like reading.
Got it. Okay.
And they're both fishyourassoff.com. So,
Are you a proponent of full tarpon over just mono leader?
you know, that hasn't proven itself to me yet. Fluoro versus mono. If I were to guess, in crystal clear water, but I haven't even proven this yet, because as far as I can tell, clear and pink is all you ever need for colors for leader two. I just haven't noticed the difference. I like fluoro when I'm fishing around structure because it's much more abrasion resistant. It's just tougher. You know, if you ever try to bite through 10 pound versus, you know, one versus the other, one's like butter and the other one's like you're gnawing on it to get through the fluoro. So that's the only difference I've really seen. And how it's so expensive. The way I go through the line, I'd have to work a lot harder. Got any questions? No? Who's got any questions? Anybody have any questions?
So from the weight down to the hook, that's an arm length?
Yeah, that's about right. Arm length. It just gets, I mean, I've heard a lot of these guys that are professional tarpon people that do all the tournaments say that you want to have it roughly the length of the fish that you're targeting. I just can't cast them. I don't know about you guys. You just can't cast something that when the leader's that long and the sinker's up too high. You just can't do it. So this is about the max I ever do. It's right here. Any other questions? You're looking at me. That's it? No more questions? Ask me what you want. I'll tell you right now.
You guys do any spillway fishing out here?
Yeah, a little bit. What do you use when you're doing that? Are you using these flare hawks?
No. Well, I live on spillway. But I use like a 3-inch paddle fish.
Oh, you're pitching the paddle fish too?
You know, I'll be tarpon about 3 inch.
Yeah.
I think Snook's about 26. But I didn't know if you had a little technique. You gotta not really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because Spillway is another great place. As soon as they open them up, all this, you know what happens is these bluegills and stuff all of a sudden hit salt water and they can't function. So these tarpon and snook are just gobbling them up. So if you can get a bunch of bluegill go on the other side and pitch a bluegill, when no one else is catching, you'll be catching with a bluegill if you're fishing a spillway, for sure. That's it?
I may have walked in a little late.
What you got?
Redfish. Just give me a quick rundown how you the river here.
The best bait for redfish is something that stinks. Those Berkeley gulps are like the best bait ever. They used to last all day, but they changed the formula somehow where they pull apart now.
Okay.
But you can literally fish one gulp shrimp for 40 redfish if you wanted to. Now it's about 2 or 3.
So use it with the weight. Use it.
Jig head.
Do they come weighted or?
Yeah, no. You're just going to use a jig head. You're going to use your 1/8 ounce jig head,
Yeah.
just like this, and bounce it on the bottom. This
To get it to the bottom, does that jig head have weights in it, or do you?
This jig head is a weight.
Okay.
It's an 1/8 ounce jig head.
Gotcha.
And you might go up to a quarter if it's a little deeper.
Yep.
But this weight is just to get it down. So wherever you're fishing in a water column, that's how you decide how much weight you need. If you're getting down with 1/8 ounce, don't go heavier.
Right.
Yeah, because then you'll just be dragging. Yeah.
And you're opting for the darker colors on the heads?
You know, I haven't found any difference there either. I've tested whites and the chartreuse and the reds. I think it looks cool. That's my answer. That's why I use red. But I've honestly never noticed the difference, but I always buy red if I can. Dumb. That makes a lot of sense. But that's why I use red. But this color definitely matters. Darker light, darker light. That's all you need to know with these.
They don't come pre-rigged that way, do they?
No, you gotta learn how to do that, but it doesn't take much practice. Just make sure they're straight, especially if you're just gonna do the easy way, you know, which is just this. If you're gonna, it has to be straight if you're just gonna retrieve it. But if you're jigging and stuff like that, don't even worry about it. It's gonna and it won't even matter unless you're doing a steady retrieve.
So a lot of times I'll cast from the shore and the first go, right or left. So same kind of thing. You try to get it on the bottom and gradually bring it back to you.
Are you on the beach or are you in the, where are you at?
Like on a dock.
Okay, you're on a dock. Yeah, same thing. You want to cast up current and just try to bounce it back to you. Yep, that's the way to go. They're almost always facing that way.
Yeah.
Into the current.
Fisher always got the
almost always. Yeah. So that's it. That's it.
Across the face.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great place to deadbait. If you're staying put, if you're like on a dock, deadbait's the way to go. Pitch it out there, put it in a rod holder, do what you got to do. With a circle hook, and it's not going to get foul hooked, and you're going to catch a fish. If you got a fish or cruising there, that's the way to go. If you're stationary, it really is. Questions? Speak up.
What do you think about mirror dye?
Mirroring, oh yeah.
Mirror dye. I love that for coach bait.
I think it's great, especially when you have the threadfin herrings is what's swimming around. The nice white bait's about yay big. It's the perfect mimic to it. And yeah, I've used them, but I prefer paddle bait just because I don't use treble hooks on anything. I find my lures in the trees for the first part. I don't buy them anymore. And then I switch them to a single hook because those mirrors catch trout, like one's in their eye and one's here. I don't want to do that. So but they work great. But I take the treble hooks on. Yeah. You're just matching the hatch. Whatever those fish are feeding on, you pitch that. Like right now, we're getting the spring mullet run. Well, the spring mullet run is big mullet. So those magnum size top waters and the bigger paddle tails are going to work better. Well, the fall mullet run, they're finger mullet. So all your smaller baits are going to work better. I didn't cover that, did I? Yeah. Yeah, match the hatch. Whatever's swimming by, try to make your bait look like that one.
How often do you use live shrimp on jig heads or free line?
See, I'm taking a lot of newbies out when I'm fishing. So it's hard to not catch stuff on shrimp. Half of it's not what you want to catch though, you know what I mean? But at least it's tugging on the line, And people pay money to come on a charter, you got to catch a fish, even if it's a jack. So if the fish aren't being cooperative with all the lures and everything else,
Use the shrimp.
use shrimp.
Shrimp catches everything.
Shrimp catches everything. Especially in the winter, you'll find that shrimp will outfish snook, everything will want a shrimp over just about everything else in the wintertime because that's really what they focus on in the winter months.
Now, what would be the best way to hook up the shrimp? Because a lot of times you throw the shrimp, and every time that you threw it, you are like killing the shrimp.
I wrote that on my thing and I didn't even cover it. Bad speaking. All right. So that's supposed to be a shrimp, but looks like a Picasso shrimp. Okay. So if I'm free lining a shrimp, all right, just the shrimp is on there. There's no weight whatsoever, nothing like that. I like to hook them in the tail, and they'll swim around like this, and when something's after them, they'll go back. But they just kind of move around like that, and it's very natural. So say you're on your dock or whatever it is, and you see a snook over there. If you pitch that shrimp to them, that free line bigger shrimp, they'll probably eat it if it's swimming around naturally like that. The other way to hook them is I didn't draw it. Anyways, you hook them right behind the horn, and there's a black dot there, which is their brain. All you have to do is miss the black dot, and you have a live shrimp still. If you hit the black dot, you hit the brain, you now have a dead shrimp. And I fish that way when I'm fishing with a bobber. Yeah, when it's underneath the float.
Do you break the horn off?
I don't. Yeah, makes sense. I'll try it. I'll try anything. If I catch one more fish today, I'm happy. Yeah, I'll try anything. Yeah, but shrimp's the way to go if you want to catch anything. They just run out all the time. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. I gotta go to the bait store a lot. They're out 2 or 3 days a week. All of them.
I know.
And I think it's the grass flats. I think because the grass is going away on the other side too. Or something. They're just disappearing. Yeah. Any other questions?
You said something about switching out treble hooks on the lure. What
Yeah.
are you switching to, a J or a circle?
Let's see. It's just an inline. Yeah, it's a
J type?
Yeah, it's a J type. What the heck? There's a cheap one at Bass Pro Shop. Some of them are super expensive, some of them aren't. And I go a size bigger. So if you're gonna switch and your treble hook hangs down this far, I'll maybe go a little bit bigger for my single. Hang it down just a little further. You know, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to that, because you're gonna need a little bit bigger.
Straight
Look, I'm
shank.
gonna, huh?
Straight shank.
Yeah, they look like a circle hook, but they're not. You'll see when
I know
you go
what
look for the
you're
inlet.
talking about. I
Yeah,
know what
okay.
you're talking about,
And just have the front one facing forward, unless you're fishing a place where there's like a lot of grass or stuff on top, and then you face them both backwards, because then they're totally weedless.
Yeah.
But you can't catch anything if there's anything on the water and you've got the one facing forward. It'll get fouled immediately. So I have some of them that are facing forward, and some are facing backwards, just based on if there's a bunch of junk on top. And you will catch less fish. I'm just gonna say it. Treble hooks catch more, but they just don't ruin the fish. If you're not gonna keep the fish, you know, if you're fishing for sport, the single is the way to go. Those trebles. I feel so bad all the years I fished them. You know, one's hanging out their eye and the other one's over here. It's horrible. So that's why I fished them, because I'm catch and release only now. That's what I do. So that's how I do it. Any other questions? Anyone? No. Well, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. What do you got?
You probably know the answer to this, so it's more for the crowd. What did the fish say when he swam into the wall?
But hey, let me tell you, some old guy came by and told me one. He goes, "How big?" That's pretty funny. He goes, "How big was the one arm fisherman's fish?" About like this. Oh my god! I never heard it before. Yeah, that's good. But thanks for coming. I appreciate it. If you guys need any information about any of the stuff I do, I got some of these if you want to pass them around.
Absolutely.
You Inshore out of Vero or? Yeah, I do Vero.
You do the end of it?